Good evening and welcome to the Selectmen's meeting for Thursday, October 30th. Our agenda tonight is the call to order, questions from the public regarding items not on the agenda. We're going to have a request from the Cogshell Group, Crow's Landing, for a change in weekend opening hours, donation of property on Sawmill Pond Road, the HCAM contract and their quarterly or their annual report. CPC is going to give the presentation of their projects this year, goals and objectives, then a project engineer contract discussion, appointments, selectmen and town administrator reports. And we have quite a long vote list. So let me open it up to questions from the public.
Can I make that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. We have one other thing.
I apologize.
Sorry, I forgot this. Paul?
I just thought it would be appropriate to note the passing of former Mayor Thomas Menino in Boston. I had the privilege of working with him as an elected official in Boston when he was acting mayor and for a period of time when he was mayor. And I just wanted to, on behalf of myself and the Board of Selectmen and the town, offer our condolences and prayers to his wife Angela and her family. And we'll miss him. Thank you. I was asked if we could have just a brief moment of silence for him. Thank you.
Do we have any other? We have a couple more minutes. If yes.
Hi, I'm Mary O'Connor, 5 Rosewood Lane. So this goes out to all three of you selectmen. So a couple weeks ago, I was here when it was quite busy and crazy in here, and you both made a great apology, and I really appreciate it for what happened to Roger Fernandez and how it was just so nuts around here with that. And I appreciate that. I thought that was very well done for both of you, Mr. Gannon and to Irma. So when Tina had suggested that we do something to make this right, we had suggested maybe paying for the legal fees or, you know, a written apology from all of you or anything like that. And when we asked you, Irma, you said, don't worry, we're going to work on that and we will be pleasantly surprised. So I'm here tonight. It's been a couple weeks, and I'd like to know what has been decided for Mr. Fernandez as far as payback for all the legal fees that he had to incur, which was so silly for him to have to do.
That's under advisement with the lawyers.
So nothing's been done, or what does
It's
that
under
mean?
advisement with the lawyers, taking a look at it.
I don't know. That just sounds like a little brush off.
It's not.
So we can't just say, all right, Roger, we're sorry it happened like you did, and here's your money. Why can't we do that? We were actually thinking of donating and everybody pitching in for it, but Roger wasn't comfortable. I just thought, especially for what went on here, and it was so embarrassing for all of you, I thought maybe that would be the first thing you guys would want to do right away.
We have to consult with our legal counsel.
Paul, come on.
Well, I just want to wait till she was finished. Mary, I just want to be clear. I think you know it. I didn't apologize for Roger Fernandez because I voted to end the discussion.
You apologize for what happened.
I apologized because of my vote on the truck. I said I felt a responsibility, and that's what I said. So I just want to be clear. I know what you meant, but I just didn't want...
But you also were...
In today's environment, I just don't want any misunderstandings, so I want to be real clear about that. And I spoke to Roger, and I know that it's being looked at, and it will be addressed. I'm sorry it can't be done tonight, but it is being looked at, and you have my word and my commitment that it'll be addressed.
And mine too.
The court costs for him.
We're waiting to see what the legal people tell us to do.
All right.
Thank you, Mary.
So we have your word.
We'll be back with their legal opinion. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Okay.
Carl?
Carl Harris, 5 Miles Road. I remember several meetings ago, you said something about good news from Plymouth County and something about the budget under control. I don't think anybody's seen a final budget for FY14. There was a preliminary one that came out, and it showed the county $750,000 in deficit for this year. They have to make it up somehow because they have to balance the budget. But the case is, there's no final budget has come out for FY14.
Carl, I'll follow up on it, because at the meeting that I was at, they were going to post the budget and all the information. I'll follow up and get back to
It
you.
has not come out. You should
Okay.
know, as the representative from Hingham.
Well, I had it. I had a paper copy.
There is no final budget out.
I'll get you an answer
Okay.
tomorrow, and we'll actually bring it back the next time we meet. I'll put it on TV.
Okay. Then, further, I think it's interesting, has anybody seen this wicked local website on October 24th? I got a quote here: Pembroke will receive a substantial portion of $150,000 earmark for Plymouth County pond cleanup in the state budget. State Representative Josh Cutler, Plymouth County Commissioner Greg Hanley, Plymouth County Treasurer Tom O'Brien were all in hand last night to deliver the news to Pembroke Selectmen. Of the $150,000, Pembroke will receive $50,000 specifically for pond cleanup and $25,000 more for pond management education. Commissioner Greg Hanley noted the possibility of funds becoming regular for the town, acknowledging Pembroke's need for outside financial support in order to manage the challenges with the ponds. Selectman Arthur Boyle took opportunity to thank Cutler. We can't thank the county enough for regionalized services, he said. I'm interested in this because, of course, Hingham needs funds for pond cleanup, and I believe we spent community preservation funds for this at one point.
Carl, I haven't...
Did you guys know about the availability of these funds?
Well, I
Did
believe...
you apply for them?
I believe that is part of the Plymouth County dredging project.
No.
I think it is.
Okay. Well, let me ask you then.
We're going to have...
Are you concerned at all that Pembroke is receiving a third to a half of the funds available? That's interesting because the Plymouth County Commissioner Greg Hanley mentioned the article as a former Pembroke selectman. That doesn't sound much like a promise of regionalized services to me. More like a treatment for Commissioner's hometown, special hometown. Does this concern you at all?
It is, because I haven't seen that article. But I do know we're going to have Ken Corson in December to talk about the Plymouth County dredging project. And
It's not
part
ponds, this is
of what?
ponds.
No, hang on a second.
Yeah.
The dredge they bought is small enough to handle the larger ponds. So I'll follow up on that, and we'll put that on TV too.
I think we should be applying for these.
Well, I do too.
And not only that, I think it should be your concern that we'd like to know when you follow up on your promise of several months ago to provide a charge for the committee created many months ago to look into the town's relationship with the county. When are we going to go forward with that?
We're looking at that, and there's so many other projects on the table where
No,
Plymouth County is
The county
kinda-
met. The committee met, and they're waiting your charge. The committee met one time, and now you're waiting for a charge. You guys can certainly get together and give them a charge. Maybe they'll find out that it's fine to just have a county for the sake of the Registry of Deeds. That's fine. Let them come in. What are you afraid of? Let them
Nothing.
find out.
Thank you, Carl. Okay, we've done the 5 minutes. John, if you're really quick.
In 2009, we did Bear Cove Park Drive, and the road wasn't met to town standards. It was received by town meeting this year. 2009, we did downtown. The wall of the pipe has been restricted now. There's no lights down on Lower North Street. The town spent a lot of money on lights. They don't light up. There's a reason for that. Somebody needs to be accountable for that. And I'm asking Mr. Healy, is that acceptable to you at this time, after 5 years?
I don't accept your representations without further inquiry, sir.
Okay, so right now, you don't know why the...
I don't accept your representations without
Okay.
further inquiry.
Let's have,
Okay.
why don't you give it to the town administrator
Pass that
to
around.
follow up?
Okay, is it okay if I hold this picture tonight?
Yes.
Okay, fine. I just want to show this thing. This is the latest on the high school field. Somebody spent $5.2 million on a high school field in road work. This is just this last week. I want to show it to everybody. Bob, can you get a picture of this, please? and I'd like to know why we have to accept this. I don't understand this. It looks to me like we have dog wash here now.
What?
This is very upsetting. Also, at Trip Hammer Road and Union Street, this road is all going to give way because now it's the drains just go drain to drain. They don't outflow anywhere. So now we're going to have a problem with the road giving way.
Okay, why don't you give the picture to the town administrator, and we'll ask him to follow up on a few of the subjects. Dr. Gallo?
I already gave you some pictures. I'm going to give you this picture.
Dr. Gallo? And then we do have to go on with our agenda. I just wanted to give everybody time to
I would just
speak.
comment, that picture looks very familiar to me because last Thursday morning, after that terrible rainy night on Wednesday, I actually was driving around town between 5 and 6 to check out conditions.
Actually, she gets up about 4.
And I drove by Union Street and saw what Mr. Hersey has presented. Not surprised, if we have 3 to 5 inches of rain, there will be that level of ponding immediately. I drove back at 11:15 on my way to lunch, and I'm happy to say that all but a couple little puddles remained, which to me said the extensive drainage that had been done was in fact working. The drainage never was purported to eliminate any ponding, but it was to take care of ponding dissipating in a very short period of time, and it did, at least that night.
Thank you, Dr. Gallo. Okay. Let's go on with the agenda. Is the Cog Shell group here? And I don't think I said that correctly. Come and join us.
Play the face.
And your food's very good.
Thank you.
I can say that. So tell us about your request for a change in hours.
Well, thank you, Board, for hearing our request and for seeing me tonight. And Mr. Gannon, thank you very much for your kind words to Mr. Menino. I had the good fortune of meeting him numerous times as well, and Boston lost one of his best today. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
We are here to request Coggeshall Group, doing business as Crow's Landing, a request to open 2 hours earlier on the weekend than what we currently are scheduled for. Right now, it is 11 a.m. to midnight on Saturday and Sunday. We're requesting to open at 9 a.m. on both Saturday and Sunday. And to do so, we've added a what I think is an extraordinary brunch menu to our offering now for the weekends. We're here to do this in order to coincide with the ABCC, Massachusetts blue laws in terms of alcohol serving, which, from my understanding from Mrs. Perfetti, that it is 9 a.m. on Saturdays and 10 a.m. on Sundays. So with that, that is our request here for tonight.
Gentlemen?
No questions.
Oh, me neither. You're getting off easy.
Fantastic.
This is, and there has been a change in the law so that alcohol can be served earlier on weekends. So, all right, I'll take a vote. Go ahead.
Motion?
I'll move that we approve the request from Cogshell Group LLC DBA Crow's Landing for a change of weekend opening hours to 9 a.m. on Saturday and 10 a.m. on Sunday.
Second.
So to clarify, we would still open at 9 a.m. on Sunday, but not serve alcohol till 10 a.m., which would coincide with the Mass law, similar to Stars being open at 7 a.m. and not serving till 10 a.m. on Sunday.
Okay, then amend the motion.
Amended to 9 a.m. on Sunday.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks. Have a copy of the brunch menu for you guys to peruse as well.
like
I
that.
see.
Like that.
Start this Saturday.
Good man. Good luck. Can we have the Sawmill Pond Road donation? I'm anxious to hear about this one.
I'm David Chase. I represent Southgate Realty Trust, which is the owner of the lot that we've owned since 1978. We developed it in 1980. The Sawmill Pond subdivision was the previous Hamlin Farm, and prior to that it was the Tropical Radio facility back in the 40s and 50s. This isolated lot we never built on. It is abutting the wetlands between the old Maryknoll Seminary and between Sawmill Pond. It is not really a very viable lot. We've been carrying it on our inventory for years, and as age has crept on with us, we've said, well, we need to clean up some things, and maybe there's a benefit to the town of Hingham. It does abut the water resource, which runs towards Accord Brook. It is approximately an acre. I have the recommendation that may be in your file from the Conservation Commission and from the Open Space Committee to make this gift to the town. We have agreed, in conjunction with the proposed gift, to certify the title to the town. And we've also agreed at the Conservation Commission direction or Open Space Committee to provide a sign indicating that it is owned by the town of Hingham, that it is a wetland resource, and so on. So we ask nothing other than to pass it on to the town, and hopefully it can provide some use and open space and connection to wetlands.
Super. Ted, do you want to add anything? So Open Space has said yes.
Correct. I think the one issue that held it up last year was there was some debris in the property, but I note that Open Space indicated that there isn't, so it must have been cleaned up.
Okay. So between Open Space, Conservation, and the DPW is okay with taking care of it if needed?
Well, I haven't spoken to Randy about that. I mean, I think if you read here, it says very clearly, and that was the intention, that this is not a piece of land that we're going to be managing going forward. It's a piece of wetland between two homes. So if people are, I just want to be clear that we hadn't agreed to accept it with the idea that DPW would be doing a large amount of maintenance on it.
Okay.
I don't believe there is a requirement for maintenance on the property going forward.
There's nothing.
No? Well, that's even better.
It does abut the drainage from the, let's call it the upper pond, to the wetland which runs out towards the tributary between us and Mast Hill, which ultimately runs out to Accord Brook. But town maintenance would be around that catch basin and drainage ditch, but that would be the only thing.
And I think the only thing that I recall discussions with real estate counsel is that we make no assertion, and the board should make no assertion as to the value of the property. That would be up to Mr. Chase to do as he deals with the IRS and those donations. Mm-hmm. We're just going to acknowledge receipt of it.
Oh, the IRS.
Gentlemen? Because I
What
went
is the
out.
infrastructure there?
I'm sorry?
What is the infrastructure there? You mentioned catch basins.
There's a drainage connector, Paul, between the wetland, which is between Sawmill Pond and Maryknoll development, and running out towards the Mast Hill Brook, which runs towards the Accord Pond. It's a drainage ditch, and there's a little weir at the let's call it the north side, which is on this property, that the town maintains anyway.
If there was a maintenance issue, how would the town access the property?
Just pull up on the road. There's
on the
nowhere
road.
to go.
Yeah.
There's a header, Paul, right at the property, just like any header.
Okay.
Because I've seen it. It's a rather pretty piece of property.
Yeah, I
wildfire.
have pictures if anybody would
Oh.
like to see them.
Paul?
I'd like to see them. I mean, I don't want to hold this up, but
This is from Sawmill Pond looking northerly towards the old Maryknoll property.
we didn't have a lot of open space where I came from, David, so this is pretty nice.
I'm sorry?
We didn't have a lot of open space where I came from,
Right.
except the ocean. Thank you very much still for the
Okay.
donation, by the way.
Well, we hope that'll work out, and hope you will approve it.
See? Okay. You want to give these back to David? Well, I'm happy that all of our groups have looked at it, and I have a lot of respect and faith in the Open Space Acquisition Committee since I've been working with them. So if they say good, it's good. Do we have any comments from the audience on this?
I move that we accept the gift of a parcel of land containing approximately 42,000 square feet located at 8 Sawmill Pond Road with thanks.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, David, very much.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
David.
And I hope it works out, and we'll cooperate as we move forward on it with the sign and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Okay, HCAM. Sorry I didn't make your meeting last night. I was kind of next door.
Oh,
Like the fair housing meeting.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying next door to us.
I'm Sandra Peavy, 204 Linden Ponds Way, Chair of the Cable TV Advisory Committee, the Selectmen. I have with me Eric Dresser, Executive Director of HCAM, who will be able to address technical issues concerning this, here for the policy. We submitted a memo, which I hope you've had time to look at. I apologize, I had the wrong email for Betty Foley, so it was a little late getting to you. And we also submitted a second supplemental grant agreement for the Educational Access Channel by and between the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Hingham, Massachusetts, and Hingham Community Access and Media, Inc. The purpose of this is to make the education channel in Hingham, public access channel, the best on the South Shore. That's what Eric's goal is. And we've been struggling this, the Cable Advisory Committee, really for quite a long time. It became obvious about a year ago that we needed to provide more support to the schools for this channel. Historically, the schools have run the channel. In the library, the person in charge of the library has been doing it. However, in recent years, she has had more and more responsibilities put upon her, and really it was not reasonable to expect the school to be able to do the job that we want to have done. Last year, we looked at our funds and we determined we had enough money in the cable operating budget to fund a half-time person. And we did. Selectmen approved that. We had a one-year contract because we weren't sure how this was going to work. That contract expired at the end of August. And we tried, and there was some improvement.
Yep.
But we also found that halftime just wasn't enough. So now we have more money now because this year we're funding just one class at the high school. In the past, we have funded 2 classes in video production, TV production, but the high school has taken over one of those. And so we're only funding the one, so we have enough money now to fund a full-time person at HCAM, which is what the contract would propose to do. And we've worked on this for months. We met, you were at the meeting with Doc Gallo, and we talked about the vision for the education channel, the things that can be done with it, and I think that Dot and the committee and HCAM are all on the same page now, and I see Dot nodding, so that was
Dr. Gallo,
certainly
do you
our
want to
intent.
come up? No? She's perfectly happy sitting back there.
I'm sure that if she disagrees with anything we say, we will hear from her, and hopefully she won't. So we are proposing $47,000 from the operating budget to be provided to HCAM. Now, the contract would begin September 1, which was when the last contract ended. And so, well, $47,000 is an annual figure. It will be a little bit less in fiscal year 24-15 because it will start 2 months into the fiscal year. And it provides for a 3% increase in subsequent years, which we think is reasonable because any person hired is going to expect to have a salary increase if they do a good job, and we're really expecting a good job. The HCAM will also take over the actual operation of the server. And you may remember that the Selectmen authorized the funding of a new server to be located in Town Hall that will serve all 3 channels. So that also makes it more sensible to have HCAM operating all 3 channels because it will be in charge of operating the server. But the high school people will be able to submit programming to the server. They can do it directly, and the agreement provides that any content that the high school produces, either the teachers or the students, because the students are producing content through both their class and they have an after-school club that puts on a Friday program. So that will be provided, and each CAM will, it says in the contract, will put that on the education channel if it's provided by the school. And I think I'm going to let Eric explain a little bit more about exactly how this is going to work.
Oh, good. Eric?
So what we're really seeking is a person who has experience from booking the content to producing the content, capturing the content, editing the content, and then even having the ability to circle back and do some of that programming work. We, of course, have our program coordinator, James, who actually just had a daughter today.
I was going to say, so what's the baby?
Yeah, and so he'll still be doing that programming
Okay.
as he's doing for the other two channels, but with a lot of input and insight from the person that's serving as this educational access coordinator. We're also interested in continuing to pursue after-school programs. We had at least 2 successful occurrences of that last year at Foster and East schools. We're looking to grow that this year, looking to also work with the middle school. We've already had some meetings with them. And just in general, capture all these events that are happening in the schools. We've talked about this lecture room that we've tried to facilitate to happen. I think that's
In the high school,
underway,
that's been done.
completed. So we'll have a space for lectures to take place. Of course, we can capture things happening in the classroom. We can capture things happening in the auditoriums, on the fields, in the community, really, truly anything educational. That's the goal here, and really just to make that channel much more robust and much more reflective of Hingham.
Super. Since I was part of this and several meetings with Dr. Gallo and you all, I think this is great. I think the ability for you to fund the person, because DOT's budget is pretty well stretched in 87 directions. But I think this is going to be great, especially if you can get the content out there. Let me open this part of it up to Paul and Paul.
I really have very little to add other than I'm very happy to watch the reruns. I find them extremely interesting. I don't get cable TV, so I get it streamed, so the sooner you get those meetings up, the happier I am.
And we hold ourselves to a 48-hour guarantee, but when I leave, I was told to let them know that I've left here so that they know that it's, where it stands, and they can start that download overnight so that the second we show up in the morning, it's already processing.
I'm shocked you got the fair housing meeting already up.
Yeah, that
from
was a
what I
midnight
heard.
morning for me, actually, last night.
That was like less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah, we hold ourselves to 48, but we try to exceed it every time if possible.
Oh,
I just really enthused that you have expanded the educational services. I mean, it's obviously, you guys do a great job anyway. I want to take this opportunity to thank you both, and
Appreciate it.
and thank you for taking an interest in our informational forum to prevent drug abuse. A lot of people that couldn't make the meeting are going to be watching it on TV, and I thank you for everything you guys do.
Very happy to.
and also Dr. Gallo has a show now on TV, and it's really good. It's nice to see the kids who are really young adults on there talking about what they do and all the different facets of education now. So that's wonderful.
We were there this afternoon taking kindergarten informational program that will be out in 2 weeks, I think.
Oh, good. That's one I think we all need to watch. So that's great. Do you want to vote this, and then we'll go to the other?
Yes.
Or shall we do them?
The other is really not related.
Okay. Does anybody in the audience have questions for?
We just hope everyone will watch.
Well, football's just about ending. We've got through the new year, so I know, we got to look for something else. I know, I love football, sorry.
So I'll move, if we're taking this one,
Yep.
to sign the second supplemental grant agreement for the Education Access Channel with Hingham Community Access and Media, Inc.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, part two.
Part two. Part two is a request to authorize the use of $11,118.22 from the cable capital funds account. We have two accounts. One's the operating, which is funded by the 4.2% that we get each month from, we get it quarterly from Verizon and Comcast. But the $11,000 will come out of the capital fund, which was funded at the time the Selectmen entered into the franchise agreements with Verizon and Comcast. $400,000 came from Verizon and $200,000 came from Comcast. The reason for the lesser amount from Comcast is that part of the agreement with Comcast was that they would maintain the iNet for the town. So that was viewed to be worth about $200,000 at the time. At least that's what we negotiated with them. So we have left in that, we have probably at the moment a little bit less than $100,000 less. We used it for all of this wonderful equipment here in the Selectmen's meeting room and for putting the robotic cameras in all those other meeting rooms at Town Hall so that we could broadcast those, and in the school committee room. We have funded a lot of equipment at the high school, new cameras and lots of other things. We ran cables underneath the new high school fields so that we'll be able to broadcast, and that goes to the high school, the things that happen, graduation, whatever, football, whatever happens on the high school fields. There will probably be coming up in the next several months another request for some additional facilities associated with that. Won't be a big amount, but we've got all the cable in, but then we need the facilities, and we're waiting for a quote from the vendor on how much that's going to be. So that'll be in the future. But when the town built the new middle school, we had the iNet and cable drop at the old middle school, and Comcast had to move it to the new middle school, which they did at the time of the construction, and then they sent the town a bill for $11,118.22 for doing that. We reviewed our franchise agreement with Comcast and found that, yes, indeed, we do have to pay for that move. They didn't charge us for the initial one, but they charge us for any moves. So the committee has considered and decided that that's an appropriate use of the cable capital funds, and we recommend that the Board of Selectmen approve that expenditure.
And I totally agree with that. And as soon as you get an estimate on the other piece, the facilities, why don't you come back, as long as you have enough money, which I think you will.
Yes.
If you'd come back so we can get that approved and get that working, so that the whole area is all covered for cable.
We were talking about that on the ride over here, about, interconnectivity with the middle school and some of these other things as well.
And I think that's really important as we go forward with this. You all have done an amazing job.
Thank you.
You really have.
It's been fun.
That's sometimes more fun than others, as I recall. But I think it's great. I think you've really moved forward, and hopefully you'll have a new home one of these days, too. Hopefully. That would be great. Just for the audience, it isn't going to be too long before we have to enter into contract negotiations with Comcast and Verizon again.
That's right. Yeah. Verizon's, we got the notice already on the Verizon from the state that at the beginning of April, we need to start doing some of our preparation work for those negotiations, and that will include soliciting input from members of the town as to how that cable service has worked over the term of the franchise so far. The following year, the Comcast will come up. So how people can start thinking about that, we'll be asking.
It's really hard to believe it's time to redo it.
It really is.
And the other piece of good news, which I don't know if everyone knows, is Linden Ponds is now on Comcast.
Yes, and that's especially good news for me because I can now watch all of the 3 HCAM channels. And the Linden Ponds people are watching also, because when I appear here, the next day I'll have people come up to me and say, I saw you on television last night. And that makes me so happy because I know they're tuning into HCAM.
Very good. Questions?
No, thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Happy to.
Okay.
Should I make a motion?
Yep.
Move to approve the expenditure of $11,118.22 from cable capital funds for moving the cable facilities from the former middle school building to the new middle school building.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ted, the next vote we have, do you want to do that one? Talk about it now? Because that'll be a quickie, and then we can go to CPC, my favorite topic. The sewer agreement.
The Sewer Commission has not voted to extend it any further, so I think you got to extend that offer. They have not voted to accept the agreement. So another 30 days and hope we can get to a better ground. I haven't heard any comments back on why or what were any of the changes. Last time I met with them, they indicated that they were ready to approve it, but they didn't.
Do you think 30 days is enough, or should we go out 45 or 60?
I think at this time it'd be worthwhile just doing it month to month until we can see where they are. I was told one of the commissioners was going to resign. He didn't. So I think we're, waiting and seeing what will happen.
Just, Ted, I'm sorry. So they didn't vote on it at their last meeting and they were supposed to, or?
Correct.
Did they table it? Did they?
Two of the members indicated to me that their intention was to vote for it. They were very grateful that the board approved the legal fees. And then they didn't vote it. They didn't table it. They discussed it for a little bit and didn't take a vote and said they'd bring it up later. So I can't give you any more feedback on it because it says...
No, I appreciate. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Okay, because I thought they were going to vote it too.
As did I.
Okay.
So I am aware that one of the commissioners has sold their house and is told left town, but they haven't stepped down at this point in time, so we're in a wait and see.
Okay. Paul?
Speechless.
Make the motion.
To extend the existing agreement with respect to the interagency operations between the Sewer Department, Highway Department, and the Board of Selectmen for 30 days.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. CPC. And if you would introduce yourself?
Good evening. Bob Curley, 1 Gristmill Lane, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee, known to most of us as the CPC, although I was asked that earlier tonight. And with me is our capable Vice Chair.
Matt Zeiper, 6 Peter Hobart Drive. Thanks for having us.
Thank you both very much. This is probably the high point of the meeting with all the projects, because I think the projects this year are very exciting. I think they're a nice variety. So with that lead in.
So for the sake of people that don't have a familiarity with the Community Preservation Act, if I could just briefly discuss what that is about.
Please.
And the composition and role of the CPC. The Community Preservation Act was established by the Commonwealth and adopted by the town of Hingham to provide for expenditures in the area of historic preservation, open space and recreation, community housing, and those are the major areas. The Community Preservation Committee is composed of 9 members, designees of the Historical Commission, the Conservation Commission, the Housing Authority, the Board of Selectmen, and am I forgetting?
Planning Board?
And the Planning Board. Yes, thank you. As well as 2 moderator appointments and 1 selectman appointment at this point. I'd like to acknowledge and thank our members who are here, Ms. Lauder, who is the selectman representative, and Jim Watson, who is the Housing Authority representative, as well as 2 of our AdCom liaisons, Lucy Hancock and Tom Bellier. They provide great oversight, advice, and additional ideas to us. So the role of the CPC is to make recommendations to town meeting concerning expenditures. We follow a process that has changed a little this year. We established as an optional procedure this year, a preliminary application, which is due early in September. That is going to be mandatory next year. And you can see from the handouts that we've given you that the preliminary process went from total asks of almost 2.3 million down to 1.6 million because we were able to focus things in a way that often hadn't happened in the past until a later time in the CPC process. We were also able to indicate to certain proponents that their proposals were not qualified, and consequently at an early time we were able to decide not to devote time to those. At this point in time, we have received written proposals in fairly good detail this year, and we have visited all sites involved that are appropriate for site visits. We will shortly have presentations from all of the proponents who can discuss their proposals in detail, and we will go on to public hearings and ultimately to recommendations. We greatly appreciate being here tonight because at the end of our process, we ultimately have a finite pie that we have to make recommendations about, and it is good for us to have the input of the Board of Selectmen and Advisory, to whom we always go at the end of the process for input, so that at this stage, if we see that there are questions we should be asking or other things we should be doing in our process or things that you view as priorities, it's helpful for us to know that. Now, having said that by way of background, I'd also be very remiss not to acknowledge Carol Costello, our extraordinarily capable administrator, who really makes things go on a day-to-day basis.
I was actually going to single her out at the end as she's hiding in the back there. She provides unbelievable services to us, and we've always got all the documents we need, and it's like killing a tree. I don't know how the woman does it, but she does. Our books are up to date. We all have binders, and everything's in apple pie order.
And she's responsible for the handouts that you have tonight. There are two financial items that are not on this handout, maybe three financial items that are not on this handout that I want to mention before going down the list of proposals and the money involved. One is that last year we set aside $146,000 as an initial set aside for funding of the bond issue approved by town meeting for the Hingham Heritage Museum and Visitor Center, which remains one of Hingham's most important historical preservation projects at Old Derby. I am told that the folks at Old Derby anticipate construction starting on that in the spring, and we will be finalizing a grant agreement and construction schedule with them as the months continue. And we will ultimately need input from our capable town administrator about whether we should be setting aside additional money for bond repayments in this CPC funding cycle. The second thing we wanted to make you aware of is that with money that has been returned, money that was unspent for previously approved CPC projects, we have established the beginning of a rainy day fund presently containing $36,000 that does not appear on this funding sheet. We have also discussed in committee whether we would want to set aside into that rainy day fund additional funds this year and in later years so that we had a cushion for those extraordinary projects and proposals that would come our way without needing to go to such things as a bonding alternative, or which could conceivably amplify the funds that are in the CPC. The third thing I want to mention is that the budget may possibly go up depending on what the final state budget numbers look like, because there was a proposal to add an additional $25 million to the CPA fund throughout the state. I think, Matt, you're actually probably a little more up to date on that than I am.
Sure. Every year, the state determines the matching funds for the CPA trust fund at the end of the fiscal year, and based on the collections in the trust fund, it determines what a match is. And I checked with Carol, and I think this $1,045,000 figure includes a roughly 26% match, which is historically very low but conservative. In the prior fiscal year, the General Court and the legislature, they approved $25 million from the state surplus. That similar legislation was approved this year. It's predicated when the Commonwealth closes its books and reviews the funding October 31st, which is tomorrow. $25 million from that surplus will go into the CPA trust fund. The legislature right now is deciding in informal session whether to have a supplemental budget, which could affect that final number. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that there will be a apportionment of that $25 million to the town of Hingham, which last year was...
It was an extra $250,000 in that
some real
vicinity.
money.
It was a substantial increase, and that $25 million is being shared by all the CPA communities. And
153 cities and towns have CPA.
And there are also some additional cities and towns that are adopting CPA.
About a dozen right now.
So that the number of CPA communities may actually go up, which may diminish the state match to all existing CPA communities. But it'd still be significant dollars. So without further ado, I'll give you a rundown of the proposals for this year. And I don't know whether you want to take questions on an item-by-item basis, or whether you'd like me to go through from start to finish and then have any discussion.
How about by category?
All right.
Take the questions after the category.
So as they appear on the handout, the historic preservation projects for this year, the first one is the Tree and Park Barn, which is a town building. And the original proposal was for replacement windows. The CPC, having an interest in historic preservation, asked that the wooden windows actually be preserved, and this also led to the present occupant of the Tree and Park Barn, who is a wonderful woodcrafter, donating his time and effort to doing some of the restoration work. This is a much-needed item in a building that has a lot of town history, as having a lot of different functions. The Liberty Plains Cemetery Phase 3, this has been an ongoing restoration project of the Liberty Plains Cemetery in South Hingham on Main Street. We had a tremendous tour of the Liberty Plains Cemetery. It really is the repository for so many people with historic connections to the town of Hingham. It is a real resource. They don't really have any source of funding other than community preservation funds and the limited revenues that they can generate from the sales of plots, and there are plots remaining. There are some very historic graves. The work has focused on the monuments and grave markers of veterans from the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the War of 1812. It is really a place of incredible history. The Bear Cove Fire Museum project, some may recall that the CPC did a roofing project on the present Bear Cove Fire Museum. Well, across the way in Bear Cove Park is Building 52, and that building presently is housing I think somewhere from 9 to 11 pieces of fire apparatus, almost all of which were Hingham fire apparatus, dating from, I think, late in the 19th century throughout the 20th century. And those pieces of fire apparatus are in the process of renovation and would be ultimately incorporated into the Bear Cove Fire Museum exhibits. What is contemplated is a roofing project similar to what was done on the Bear Cove Fire Museum. The roof is in significant need of repair. It almost looks like a community garden in some places on top of it due to lichen accumulation. And so that this would be a preservation of a historic building as well as a preservation of the repository of significant historic artifacts of the town of Hingham.
Just one note, that building, I think we learned, was 250 feet long and it was either 50 or 80 feet wide. It's a very large building.
The Hingham Congregational Church handicapped ramp is a proposal for handicapped access right at the front of the church that's involving raising stone steps up to the level of the sanctuary or the nave of the church and building a ramp to the left side as you face the church. The preliminary amount proposed is probably what is close to the total project cost. The Congregational Church is looking for $20,000 from the CPC and is going to do the balance of the fundraising themselves. So with private property in the past, we have looked for substantial contributions from private property owners to leverage an investment by CPC in the community, and that's what's going on here. The Glastonbury Abbey has a unique and historic stone building and tower in the center of the grounds. The shell of the building is actually in pretty good shape. The roof and the windows are in sad shape. I think the challenges we face with this particular project is that I think the ultimate project that's contemplated is probably something that would cost more than $500,000. And I think the $25,000 that is being requested is just the tip of the iceberg. And the Abbey has told us that, at least at this point, it doesn't appear that they have fundraising capability or funds, although they have a significant amount of money on their balance sheet arising from the sale of the Lincoln School to the town. I am told that that money is being restricted by the Attorney General and is not available for this kind of capital improvement. So I think the Abbey project presents some significant financial challenges, and they are looking for all CPC money. The Hingham Historical Archives is an ongoing project, and the $98,000 ask in past years, that's been the approximate amount of the ask, and that has varied depending on how much money is actually needed when we get to the time of making recommendations. Hingham has a wealth of historical documents, and the archivists are doing a tremendous job putting them in shape for preservation. The gazebo restoration project, the Historical Commission was able to save from destruction a historic gazebo that was on the Melville Walk, and the proposal for that gazebo is to put it in a location where a similar gazebo existed on Ragged Island. It would be visible from the shore, and there are going to be substantial funds contributed by the Harbor Islands groups and Mike Dyer from the Historical Commission, who also plays a role with the Harbor Islands, is heading up that project. The second parish handicapped access, again, that is for handicapped access on the left side of the church as you face it from Main Street. And it involves basically interior construction of handicapped accessible way to get into the sanctuary of the church. Again, I think on that project, there's going to be a challenge to the proponents to contribute a certain significant amount of what is being asked for, which is one of the challenges. And the last in the historic preservation category is the Lincoln School Apartments elevator replacement. The Lincoln School Apartments appears on Hingham's historic inventory, and the elevator is in the newer wing of the Lincoln School Apartments. However, it is the means by which those apartments which are in the historic part of the building are accessed by those who need handicap access. The elevator is in tough shape, is in dire need of repair, and we were pleased that we could qualify that particular proposal under historic preservation, as it would be questionable whether it could be qualified under community housing.
Okay. Gentlemen? Paul?
I'd actually just prefer if you kept going.
Let me see if, Paul, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I just one comment. That's all. And I appreciate you working with the folks in Lincoln to come up with some possible solutions, because that is a serious problem that they face, and these are some of the most vulnerable residents in town. So I thank you for doing that.
There's actually several on here that I'd invite everybody to, in the good weather and as fall comes, to take a walk through the Liberty Plain Cemetery. When we were there on the tour, it was amazing, the history. And they have done quite a bit of restoration of some of the headstones, and they're beautiful when they're restored. And it would be a nice walk. There's actually plenty of space in the back also. I'm also happy to see two of our more historic churches being made more accessible, because as everyone ages, they need a little help getting in the front door there. So both of those, all of these are certainly worthy projects. The Bear Cove Fire Museum, which we're active in and support very much, there was a time when that building, you couldn't get in it. It had so much equipment. And as they fix it up and move it into the museum or trade it for another piece of Hingham equipment, it's really amazing what that they've amassed there. So, keep going.
So we next come to the CPC Administrative Fund, which is a fund that is used to pay for appraisal fees, for lawyers' fees associated with projects, which pays for part of Carol Costello's salary, and which pays for engineering support from Roger Fernandez, who has done a tremendous job in supporting CPC projects and has almost invariably delivered the projects on time and below budget. So then we come to open space acquisitions. The first one is 149 Rockland Street, a property owned by the Barbuto family. We saw this last year and this year. It was the #1 priority of the Open Space Committee. We had looked at creative ways to make this possible last year, and it would appear that that creativity is bearing fruit this year, because this year's proposal, the really desirable part of this parcel in terms of conservation and open space is the parcel that abuts the Weir River. It is absolutely stunning in its beauty, and that parcel abuts existing conservation land.
This is the very hilly part, correct?
Right. There's kind of a ridge in the middle of the property, and that ridge is going down to the river. That's the area that we're looking at. It would appear that we will be able to think about buying that property, of course, subject to an appraisal. And the Conservation Commission and Open Space have identified independent appraisers, and the CPC voted earlier this year that we wanted an independent appraiser rather than an appraisal provided by a proponent, so that we would have complete confidence in that appraisal. I expect we'll be moving forward with that appraisal process in the near future, and then we will need to see what negotiations would need to occur depending on what the appraisal reveals. The 875 Main Street property owned by the Baileys was also a project that we saw last year, and the issues with that really relate to whether there's a developable lot on the property or not. Matt is the project proponent, so I'll let
Project
him-
manager.
Project manager, I'm sorry.
That's about 3 acres across from the water company and the Lutheran church. It's a flat wetland you see on Main Street, just south of South Elementary School. It's a beautiful property. It's wet. It's a significant wetland, and there's an old woods road that I think is probably dates back hundreds of years. And again, as Bob says, the question is whether this is developable or not. I think that is up for question. And so if it wasn't developable and the town and the CPC wanted to purchase it, the price would be significantly lower, obviously based on an appraisal, and we'll have to see if that comes to bear.
The next open space proposal is for 111 High Street, which those of us that live in the area kind of know as the Beagle House, because they've always got the sign out for the beagles towards the end of the summer. And there is access to parking off of High Street for this particular property. And there is a back area, again abutting some existing conservation lands, that has been historically used for agriculture. The present owner, I think, has grown almost everything under the sun back there, used to make his own maple sugar. And what this proposal really is to provide community gardens for the town of Hingham. And we felt that what this proposal really needed was someone who was going to move forward with the educational part of making this work as a community garden. And we were very pleased to learn this week that Janice McPhillips, a Hingham resident and employee of Holly Hill Farm, is very excited about having the opportunity to have a community garden, and thinks that she would work with the Hingham schools, Hingham families, and the present owners to kind of become a steward of this property. So I think that could be an exciting educational open space project going forward.
Just one note about Holly Hill Farm, which is based in Cohasset, but which runs all of the the gardens at the elementary schools now, provides education in the Hingham elementary schools currently. So if you go behind some of the schools and there's vegetables growing, those are programs, I'm not sure who pays for them, if the town contracts with Holly Hill Farm, but they're already in the Hingham schools providing education on agriculture. So.
The Conservation Fund, somewhat similar to the CPC Administrative Fund, is used for, again, appraisals, for environmental inspections, for doing the due diligence on open space acquisitions, legal expense, and those types of administrative expenses. The South Shore Country Club tennis court renovation, again, is on town property. The tennis courts have large cracks in them. the country club sees renovation of the tennis courts as integral to their offering of services. They're hosting outings and events. They're providing recreational opportunities for young people. This is probably no better than a 7 to 10 year fix, but a longer term fix than that would involve not all that many more years and significant additional money. The barn, Phase 4, is for, also known as the head house, out behind this town hall. This we would foresee as the final phase of the restoration of the barn. This is a recreational project rather than a historical project. The barn serves the Hingham recreation programs in the summertime, and the restored barn will basically provide a year-round facility for recreational activities of all different kinds, as well as enhanced parking. Crest Field is on Upper Gardner Street. Many people know it as the playground of the misfit toys.
The lost toys.
And the vision for the Crest Field playground project is somewhat similar to what was done with CPC funds for the Bradley Woods playground, which opened this year, and it's been tremendously successful. Crest Field, however, is going to be almost completely, if not completely, handicapped accessible, so that there'd be sensory experiences. Young people that are confined to wheelchairs would be able to be on the equipment, to have some use of the equipment. It's an area that doesn't have a lot of recreational facilities in the town, and this would provide a tremendous service to the neighborhood and all of the people in the town that are looking for those kinds of recreational opportunities. The community housing items are for the Hingham Affordable Housing Trust. They are asking for funding of an opportunity fund. This opportunity fund was funded last year, and the fund was successfully used to purchase a condominium unit, which will then be resold and repurposed in perpetuity for use as community housing. The money from the resale will go back into the Hingham Affordable Housing Trust, and it is to provide those kinds of housing purchase opportunities to the Affordable Housing Trust that will allow them to create more affordable units in the town of Hingham. There is a proposal for primarily window restoration or replacement at 132 Scotland Street, which is an affordable house owned by the town close to the Scotland Street conservation area. It is a capital improvement that this building needs to have if it is going to stay in the kind of shape that it needs to be in to serve its purpose throughout the years. And I think that brings us to the end of our proposals.
You're really great. The Scotland Street house, also, we're going to be looking for them to give us a 5-year plan, because the house is going to need just like any house. It's a rental property under the affordable housing. It is managed by the Housing Authority. And because it was purchased with CPC funds can be used to maintain it. But it's going to need a new roof over time. It's going to need things just like our houses do. So that's the good news. And the Opportunity Fund, I think, is really great. One of the reasons that I totally support the Housing Trust is the opportunity to buy up properties scattered throughout the town. and deed them as affordable and then resell them, so that we scatter our affordable housing throughout town rather than cluster it in one place. All of these projects are really great. Mr. Healy.
I would concur, although it's disappointing to me that the community housing allocation is always, seems to be on the light side. And, I mean, I've said that in the past, so I'll say it again. I'd like to see a little more weight put into developing the community housing with this funding. Perhaps my understanding was incorrect, but I thought it was kind of a third at one point.
Oh, there's a 10% reserve for each of the major categories: historic, open space, and community housing. And we have typically been carrying, as you can see up at the top, we have $77,000 left over in the housing reserve from last year. And I will observe as well that the Lincoln School elevator replacement, in many regards, is a quasi-community housing project, even if it is under the historic rubric.
Okay, fair enough.
Otherwise, we can't fund it. I mean, we gave some thought.
Well, that's the basis for that funding?
Yes. It was originally proposed as community housing, but there are qualification issues because the Lincoln School was not acquired with CPA funds. And to the extent, I mean, for future planning purposes, if the town is acquiring other aspects of community housing, it might be worth investing some amount of CPA funds in the acquisition.
That's why this opportunity fund is so great, that this does afford us in the future the opportunity to use CPA funds. And there hasn't been a wealth of projects coming forth.
I was going to say that. I mean, we're responding, but I mean, there is certainly the wherewithal of folks who think about affordable housing in town. I mean, while we were looking at the Lincoln Apartments, I mean, the question about some expansion of that project was just discussed in private there, and that would certainly be a place for CPC funds to provide equity capital towards expansion if that project were to be put forward. So I think you're right in thinking about the allocation of the funds. We would need, like we had with Father Bill's and the house on Fort Hill Street, a project of significant scope to invest those resources.
Okay, we had a discussion with some of the Lincoln School people before tonight's meeting about the proposed, or the idea of, a new wing. And the creation of community housing is a permitted use for CPA funds. So that would be a good area for someone to present a proposal in.
As long as you had the parking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that could be accommodated. I mean, you can fund all of that within CPA
Yeah.
funds, I
Mm-hmm.
think. Yeah, I mean, can't create that.
Just a couple, thanks, Bob. The rainy day fund, is that what did we do with the excess previously? I mean, it wasn't specifically.
It typically has, at least in the years that I've been on the CPC, we have pretty much spent what we've had.
Makes sense.
I think in prior years, others in the audience, like Bill Reardon, that could speak to this, I think there were some substantial amounts that had been accumulated that let things like the mobile station acquisition happen. But I think when we came to town meeting with the bond proposal a couple of years ago, it made people start thinking seriously about creating a fund that was in existence that could be used for something along those lines.
Okay.
I'm glad we did it this year, or going to do it. Okay.
It's been done.
And we should give Kathleen Peters some brownie points for that.
I'd like to thank all the members of the
Yep.
committee. We have a lot of wonderfully productive and diverse perspectives
Yep.
that I think give us a good end work product.
I do too, and I think starting this rainy day fund is a real positive thing to do. No, any more questions?
No,
Let
thank
me
you
open
very
it.
much for your hard work.
Let me, John.
John Hersey. I think you're going to have a problem with Bear Cove Park Fire Museum because there's 3 players involved with Bear Cove Park. It's the Board of Selectmen, it's Bear Cove Park Committee, it's the Department of Interior. There's only 2 parcels in there that have covenants with the Department of Interior. That means basically permission in a decree. Is the Bear Cove Park Fire Museum as it stands today, that entity right there, and the Train Museum. The deed is in effect, and it's only for park and recreation. It's not used as a land bank, as some people might think it is. So you're going to have to get permission from the Department of Interior before you try to use that building for anything other than what it is right now. And I don't think it's really even supposed to be used for what it's used for right now. Second of all, Lincoln Apartments, I find it very ironic that the Monkstown, the Gladysbury Abbey was so smart, and they unloaded it to the town of Hingham, and somebody didn't do the homework, because it wasn't that long ago we bought it, and all of a sudden now we need an elevator in it. Also, we need a alarm system. Fire alarm system is decaying. And in order to accomplish the elevator system, I think it's wise to tell the people right now what that entails. And you did hint on a wing on that building, because I don't know how you're going to do that. Take the elevator down and dismantle it, and how the people are going to get up and down. So the people have to be housed in a hotel, motel until that's done, or you have to build another wing.
John, I'm going to stop you right. There is a plan in place for that. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else for any of the CPC? Great job. Paul, do you have any more questions?
Nope.
Super. Thank you very much.
See you in January.
I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And thank you, Carol. The next piece is goals and objectives. And we have the document we've been working with, and then a document that I saw for the first time about 3:30 today. So, Ted, maybe you could help us with this, because I thought we were pretty much done.
I think this is Selectman Healy's goals and objectives as he sees them. I'm looking at the calendar, and with all due respect, we've got about 6 months to go. I tried to simplify what I thought would be an appropriate focus. It incorporates most of what we've already been talking about, but does streamline a few things. I think the Aquarian Water Company litigation remains extremely important. We just had a significant ruling in our favor this week, which I was very happy to read. I think staying the course on that, supporting the litigation arm in anticipation of trial, and then moving forward from there. I think the judge will rule promptly. The property tax relief is pretty much the same as what we've been talking about. I draw into my proposal the importance of expanding the commercial tax base to take a little relief off of the residential base.
Paul, could I just,
Sure.
Just on the first one, versus what we've been talking about for the last couple of meetings, is there something, I know it reads a little differently, is the same general idea, or are we looking at?
It's the same general concept, Paul.
Okay.
Nothing really new.
Yep.
I drew it out in a little more detail because we do have a fairly dedicated group of citizens assisting us on this, and I think they should be included in it.
And we have a very good legal team. Well, there was no move to exclude it either. Just
not suggesting there was. I just felt in the interest of completeness for that issue, it should be stated.
Yep, okay. No problem.
The property tax relief, again, continued emphasis on tax relief, looking at all the options available to us, both specific and general. I've talked about that. I've made no secret of my desire to see the Derby Street corridor, South Shore Park, the Bristol property figured out in the right way, maximize the benefit to the town, which kind of ties into my third point, the economic development. The South Hingham, we call it the South Hingham Working Group. We met Tuesday night. We continue to have the discussion. The meetings are actively attended. No subject matter is left untalked about. We talked about housing issues, the realities of where we are up there, how that, if at all, could integrate into what's there. The townwide traffic study, I think, is it's important. We're talking about it in bits and pieces. Derby Street, Whiting and Gardner, 3A, Summer Street. The town's roadway system is an old one, but yet the volumes that we're encountering continue to grow. I see this as a planning tool for both a policy-making decision in the future with boards of selectmen as well as the planning board, the ZBA. And let's figure out what we've got here. I took the liberty of getting a little assistance from the zoning board. There's a couple of, within that is just a small transportation master plan. Let's define what we have. Look at the volumes, speeds, parking, safety issues, capacities. Develop a planning horizon 15, 20 years down the road. Let's look forward. And then provide recommendations. And that'll help with the other planning decisions, whether they be at the harbor, whether they be at the center, whether they be up in South Hingham, or down in South Hingham, as the case may be. And all the time that we're doing this, engage the people that have a direct stake in the outcome, that is the residents. And finally, the area that you and I respectfully disagree, although I think we want the same thing, but I'm taking exception to the approach. I think we should reestablish the Harbor Development Task Force. I think the time has come. I think this is too big of an issue just to have a small select group of people in the mix. My proposal is that we have members from the Harbor Development Committee, the Bathing Beach, Harbor Master, Zoning Administrator, Senior Planner, Concom, Town Engineer, all looking at this area. And it's worked before rather well. I see that it can work again. And let's come up with some kind of master plan that addresses some of the big issues down there that we've talked about. That's the seawalls and the ability to withstand flooding. That's Route 3A. That's the Summer Street corridor. Let's look at the stabilization of the beach, the beaches, the boat ramp. Looking at the facilities there. These are all things that I think are, critically important, but there's a sequence. And I respectfully dissent. I don't think the RFP that's being talked about is timely. It's not ripe. And to go forward with that, to me, is problematic. I'm happy to discuss that further if you wish.
Well, I'm concerned that we're going to have two groups working on the harbor, the task force and the Harbor Development Committee.
The Harbor Development Committee would be part of the
But just a
task
member,
force.
one member.
Yeah, but this is a bigger issue than just the Harbor Development Committee. This involves Route 3A, this involves the Rotary, Summer Street.
We had pulled Route 3A out as a separate objective because it is important. It is a safety issue on Summer Street, and it will facilitate people going to the harbor. So last time we'd agreed to pull that out.
3A is not part of Summer Street, not in that area.
This 3A Summer Street corridor.
Right,
That's-
but again, the fundamental infrastructure of that area of town should be addressed before we start putting amenities such as structures on the wharfs. And I don't believe that the present goal and objective as stated and pressed by you does that. And that's why I've proposed a broader approach. It steps back but we have the time to do this right.
Well, I don't
We only get one chance to do this right.
Conceptually have a problem with what you've added, or the way, but I do think the RFP for the Maritime Center has to get out, as well as the warrant article for the 30-year lease on Barnes Wharf 1. And we need to bring the groups together to focus on a group who will then work with all these other groups in the task force for the vision for a maritime center. The people in town have roundly said they want a maritime center, where it's going to take 1.5 years to permit anything, at best. And we really...
Wharfs are in poor condition. They need to be fixed. We don't know whether they're even, if fixed, in their present condition, enough to deal with the conditions of nature. We don't know that. And if we have flooding problems and we flood out the sewer station on Station Street, we flood out the square, the people are going to say, why did you press with a rowing center when this was far more important? We have to do this.
They can be parallel efforts, because both of those efforts are going to take quite a while. And it's important that we bring both the sailing and the rowing groups together for the vision of the new Maritime Center.
You're prioritizing the Maritime Center above the basic infrastructure, i.e. the stability of the beaches, the boat ramp, the seawalls. The seawalls are too low. They're too low right now.
Okay.
They're flooding.
But we have structures on them now. And
we have a statue. We have a crumbling seawall in front of the old mobile site. And we have a small building on Barnes Wharf. It can't sustain anymore. It doesn't have the parking.
Correct.
You can't build anything other than what's there without the parking. You can't build anything that's higher there. That's in an overlay district that severely limits the height. The entire harbor is in an overlay district where the height is extremely limited.
Understood.
So, again, I submit that this RFP is way too premature. It simply is. And, you know, I watched our conversation about this, and you said we made commitments to people, and I don't know where that came from, because that wasn't something I participated in.
No, that was during negotiations
For what? With who?
For the Lincoln Maritime lease. Commitments were made.
That there would be a long-term lease at some point in the future? But at what point?
There were timetables. Ted, you were there.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the warrant article was supposed to go last year, but it didn't. So for the long-term lease, and we need to have a way for the rowing center and the sailing center.
It's almost $4 million to rebuild that wharf in its present state. And what if that wharf isn't strong enough to support what's anticipated by this RFP?
It will be able to support something.
Big deal. We need to be able to have that thought out better. We need to make sure that the wharf is going to be high enough.
And this group that will form will do that.
The Harbor Development Task Force can do that, because you'll have the expertise in place from all the different town committees that'll be tasked with this.
And
Why
they'll
not
end up
front-load
working.
the thought process here?
And they'll end up working with the group that wins the RFP for the Maritime Center.
Yeah, but that's not going to represent the interests of the town.
Would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I just want to wait till you guys to finish this up.
Go ahead, be my guest.
This is our third meeting, and I found what, Paul, what you put together was helpful, because I honestly had no idea what you were going to put together. So, and I understand, based on our conversation, you took a different track, that you think we're getting ahead of ourselves, but, I think we had this conversation the last time, and I think we had the conversation in the first meeting, is your concern is that we can't move forward until we have more information, more study, et cetera. My opinion is that we can move forward, that we can have parallel tracks, as Irma says, and we can address all these issues at the same time. We may not get them all done at the same time. I'm not disagreeing with you, you're saying what needs to be done, Paul.
I'm just giving you a heads up, I'm going to get up at town meeting and talk against this, because I don't think this is ready. I think that we need the effort front-loaded to do this. And if we can do that, then we can put out the kind of vision that we collectively feel, and not individually out of self-interest feel, is appropriate for the waterfront. I don't see why that is something you wouldn't agree with.
I don't know why you wouldn't support a 30-year lease for whatever.
Because it's not ready for that kind of discussion
I think it
yet.
is. I think
How
it
is it? We don't have the parking, right?
But a 30-year lease for the wharf so that something over time can be built on there. And the group that would be put together is a group that is going to work with Harbor Development to build it.
I guess I think I'd rather have the town of Hingham create the vision of what should be there as opposed to leaving that to someone else. And that's what I'm troubled with here, because I think that if you go that route, you know, they're not going to have the same concern for the Summer Street corridor. They're not going to have the same concern for the 3A problem we have. You know, we haven't even figured out whether the rotary is appropriate to remove. We really haven't. There's a lot in play here. It completely ignores Steamboat Wharf. You know, is there a way to tie that into some of this that's going on here? We haven't had those discussions in any kind of substance. We're not planning. That's the problem. We're not planning here. I don't know why. We've had a conceptual iteration prepared by DJ McKinnon, and it's a very generous contribution, and it's well worth having the conversation, but it's just not ready. He himself would tell you that if he was in the audience.
Well, and if we
He's
put
an
out the
experienced
RFP,
developer.
yes, he is, and he supports the RFP. And if we send the RFP out, we don't get responses that we're happy with, then we'll pull it back. But there is a great swell out there for people who want a new maritime center and want a joint group, a sailing, rowing group together.
I've said it several times, we don't have the foundational infrastructure in place. And, you know, the kind of activity that you're envisioning can't be supported on a historic wharf that needs to be totally rebuilt and may be too small to survive the weather that is coming.
But it may be, when all that is done, 5 years out, 7 years out, it may be ready. And to have the group in place working towards that vision and towards accommodating that. This project to build a new maritime center is 5 to 7 years out. And you got to start somehow and somewhere.
I agree.
And we have to continue.
We start with the foundations.
And we have to continue to support the rowing and sailing programs and the rowing teams that we have.
We do that now.
Not elegantly.
So what? We're doing it now.
Well, let me just say, I know you don't mean it literally, so what? There are people in the town who are our constituents who are very interested in these projects, and I think we owe it to them to give it a shot. And we have a great infrastructure in terms of town oversight that'll try to make something work out of it. And you know, we're not trying to go in there blind. You have made some very good points, but we're already prioritizing Summer Street. We're prioritizing 3A. We're prioritizing money for the seawalls, and we'll keep working on that stuff. But I mean, I just want to be clear. I mean, I'm pretty clear on it that the people I talk to in town predominantly want it. It's a great treasure we have to have the center and the students at the high school performing at such a high level. I personally am very happy to be able to do that. And it's a long project, Paul. This isn't something we're going to do in a couple of years. And we might meet 20 more times on this issue, and you might have more suggestions, right? And some of those things will come to fruition. But to do nothing because we're waiting.
I'm not saying do nothing, Paul. I worked on the Baker Hill project for 15 years. I worked on the shipyard for 10. These are big projects. They take time. This takes time. If we don't start at the base elements of what we want to do here, we're going to come back to it, and it's going to be a lot more expensive, and it's going to be much harder. It simply will be. You build a house without the right foundation, you're going to have a problem. You build a structure that you can't park, you're not going to get it permitted.
But, correct.
The planning
This
board
is-
will not permit a structure
Understood.
that can't be supported by the parking.
No
You
one
don't
is,
have
no one
it.
is saying that. What we're saying is, put the RFP out, get the group in place that is going to work in parallel with your, and I could buy everything you have here if we add the RFP and the warrant article for the long lease. And whatever gets permitted is going to fit in with your vision here and the long-term plan, and will be another body of people that will help lobby the state to get us money to fix Summer Street and the 3A corridor. Because you really can't fix Summer Street unless you fix a good part of the 3A corridor. Not easily, anyway. So,
You know, I know I'm outvoted on this issue. I'm going to enter my position as the minority on this respectfully, because I understand that you're determined to go forward on this, but I want the reasons clearly understood by the public on the record. We're going forward on a speculative undertaking without the infrastructure in place, and I think that that's extremely dangerous. Not only that, I think it raises false expectations, or not false, but unrealistic expectations as to what can be done there. And we're going to ask people to spend a great deal of money to you know, submit something. You know, how do you talk about this? Do you expect them to rebuild the seawall?
I would say that's our job, the town's. It's the town's seawall.
All right, well, would you expect them to rebuild the seawall with this big structure on there?
Who knows how big the structure is going to be? The structure will
I think
follow.
you've said that the iteration that was presented to us by Mr. McKinnon was the concept that was being followed by this group that I have no idea who they are. You know, I realize this is your own initiative, but there's been no real conversation on this except for this.
There's been a lot of conversation,
With who?
Paul.
With
Harbor
me?
Development.
I'm one of the
Harbor?
3 selectmen, and
I understand.
we're hearing it in terms of objectives and goals, but that's it.
There's been a lot of conversation with the public.
The planning board?
No, not yet.
The
I mean,
ZBA?
DJ has gone to the planning board,
Informationally only with pretty pictures.
right? Well, the pretty picture at some point turns into a plan.
Exactly.
Yes,
That's-
through the
that's my
permitting
argument.
process.
It's a
And-
pretty picture, it's not a plan.
Through the RFP process and the group that will form, that will take this through the permitting process over time. They've got to fundraise, they've got to take it over time. I just see this as parallel efforts, and there is a huge groundwell of support in the community for a maritime center.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that that's a good thing. We live on a harbor community. And, you know, the harbor's been used for centuries. And it will continue to be used for centuries. But I think that we owe it to the people that preceded us to do this right and sensitively. People are very sensitive to building heights down there. You know, I met with a couple of folks this week from Crow Point who are very concerned about, you know, the mass of the buildings that are going on up around them. We spent a great deal of effort working through this whole issue when we rezoned the harbor a couple years back, just for this reason, because we don't want these massive structures.
This is not going to be a massive structure. Whatever it turns out will be permitted and well within the...
What does that mean? What does that mean realistically? I mean, I spoke to the harbor master and I got his assessment on what a 4-season operation would entail, and frankly, this is going to be very, very demanding. I don't think this has been fully thought out.
Paul, are you saying that we shouldn't have a 4-season activities on the waterfront for the town? I mean, I'm not sure what you're saying.
It's all iced up, Paul. The harbor ice is up.
Right. So maybe it's not a 4-season if
Well,
it's iced up. But
I'm not sure. I thought I saw that in that iteration that DJ McKinnon put in there.
It has to go through the permitting process, Paul, and if you don't start, we'll never get it done. So the start of forming the RFP and forming the new group.
You and I are talking in circles. I'm not saying don't start it. I'm saying start it further back and start with the foundational parts of anything that goes in there. So that if the final piece, you have a different view than I do, it's not a big deal. We have the basic structures in place. The seawalls are strong. The roadways work, no matter what goes in, and we have the parking.
Well,
we have opportunities there, you know that.
Of course I do.
So
and so
we're,
does Mr. Gannett.
Yes, so we're not constrained only to barns.
I can buy everything you've added, and if we add the RFP for the Maritime Center and the 30-year lease on barns.
I'll agree to everything except that.
Well, why don't we agree to disagree?
Fine.
Yep.
We will. I respectfully dissent.
All right, then we'll add those. Let's go back to...
I still have a couple more.
Oh, okay, and then we'll go back to the ones that
Which is essentially, we're incorporating what we agreed upon on the 16th we met, the town administrator bylaw, the town vehicle policy review, the whistleblower policy, the Truman Committee, and the town administrator search committee bylaw.
Now, where did that one come from? Did that one come out of the town administrator bylaw to codify what happens if and when a new search is?
I think it's a good idea to have that in place.
Yep, fine. Oh. Those I don't have, and I've seen a draft of the whistleblower policy, and it's very good, and it is very much needed. Okay, going back to, economic development, that's probably okay. Property tax relief, I want to go back to the document that we spent a great deal of time talking about. I do think we should add back in there for property tax relief, this examining the unused levy capacity. That is a sleeper. If we have to go back and use that, that is going to raise taxes. So I think there has to be a public discussion of that. Do you have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem discussing anything, to be honest with you.
So we're going to add that back in?
I think we have limited time, though, and I'm sincere about that. I think,
agree.
We've got half a year.
Okay.
We should focus on what we reasonably can attain.
I would like to also go back. I'm just going to add the unused levy capacity. I think a critical one is the debt management plan. And that would be a joint with us, with the advisory committee taking the lead. We're sitting on $40-some million of short-term debt, perhaps picking up some new debt, and we should have a conversation and a documentation of what do you do with.
But isn't this done anyway?
No, not this part of it, and not. I worked with Mary Power, and these are her words on. We've never sat down. We have a financial policy. And we've never sat down and had the conversation about taking the debt we have and restructuring the debt.
But doesn't Ted do that on a regular basis and make recommendations? And, I mean, am I off on that, Ted?
No.
So.
But I think we need to formalize it, and the advisory committee was agreeable to do this. And this has been talked about for quite a while. I don't think Mary has taken a vote on it, but she was supportive of it. There are a number of people who have been pushing this for a number of years. I know I started it and didn't have time to finish it, but I think it's a critical thing that we get done this year.
But don't we do that every year? Just for the record. Don't we make these kind of decisions on an annual basis?
We don't really have the conversation on the mix of short-term and long-term debt. And this needs to be codified. This needs to be codified into the financial policy, which is part of what will happen. as a result of this. But then there will be an extended discussion, and Ted, you indicated you were preparing something for advisory, which I assume we will then see?
Yes. Advisory's asked me, as part of their regular course, to look at debt. They've been concerned about debt, as pretty much every advisory committee since I started working here 20 years ago has been concerned about debt. I think it's a profile of the town. Very concerned about the debt. As we move forward with issues, we tend to have a significant discussion with the advisory committee. Over the years, different boards of selectmen have weighed in and out on those issues. But generally, this is an advisory committee issue. They usually run with this and make the recommendations to town meeting.
So,
I mean, we've talked about it before, and maybe being the new member, I don't have as much experience as you guys do with it, but I don't see the harm in doing it. And
we got 6 months left, Paul.
yep, well, this has to be done.
I mean, to be honest with you, Paul, I mean, I'm trying to accommodate everybody's interest here. You know, there are things that I don't think that we need to put on us, and I'm, you know what I mean?
Keep going.
The master plan for athletics and recreation, we've talked about that for a number of years. It came up during the middle school discussion. It's going to come up again as we need new fields, and I think this needs to be done. I don't think this will take a great deal of the town administrator's time. I think putting a committee together and letting them run with this.
Well, it's cumulative what we give to the town administrator to do or take away from him doing. My suggestion would be to respectfully request the rec commission take this up in total, and work with the school department and do the kinds of things that you're talking about doing here. I think we're going to be pretty busy with other things.
Well, there's other people that are very interested in participating in this as well. So putting a committee together and letting them run with it, I think, is the right thing to do.
Paul, just so you know, I mean, I've heard from other people that have interest in it, and they want to be at the table, too. So not that it's a bad idea to have the rec.
Get the sports guys and have them sit with the rec guys.
Well, the League of Women Voters.
I think that's what we've talked about the last 2 meetings, is to have this committee with the chair, put those people all together. I'm told that a lot of the work may have already been done. I know we talked about Ted has some expertise in this area. Again, all working together, we come up with some type of proposal. There's certainly a need for it. I certainly would support it.
And I've had 2 people from the League of Women Voters, and they have a very rigorous process. When they do things, they would like to participate as well.
Again, we have a very limited time period, and this is a very aggressive
It is.
Set of
Yep.
goals and objectives. When we were doing this last year, I think the recommendation was we have like 5 or 6, and we try to focus on those. And by my count, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Well,
11.
And there are committees already working on some of these. The analysis of legal expenses. If we're looking out where our growth numbers are dropping, and if we're looking for ways to perhaps save money, we need to start looking at this and analyzing it. And perhaps it's time to have an in-house legal counsel. But you can't really do any of this without doing a needs analysis of our legal expertise. What are we spending now? Where are we spending it? And is there a better way to do it? So I think I very much want to see this done.
I think that the inherent accountability of an attorney to the client remains present in every transaction. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, the legal work that's done in this town is in reaction to the tasks that are presented to the lawyers. If there's a quiet year, that's great. But, I mean, right now, you've been using the Labor Council quite a bit. We don't have a big project that may involve land use. We have a big case that involves the water company. So it can change from year to year.
Actually,
there's no suggestion that there's anything inappropriately being done here.
Nobody's saying that at all.
There's full accountability to the town administrator by the attorneys, and we're kept fully informed. We're getting excellent work from all of them.
But is
So-
there a better way to provide the services?
We've
And
already
with
been
the-
through that.
I haven't been through it, Paul. I'm just saying
We
this.
went through that with Jim Toomey.
I haven't.
I haven't been. As a new member, I would like to know as much as I can.
Did you get the
Yes.
memo
What memo?
that Karen Johnson wrote?
I did not.
A long, that's a
you
long
know
time.
that.
I gave
Yeah, I
it
have
back.
not gotten it from Karen yet, so I need to get a hold of
But
it.
I would love to read it, but I think when we talked about this last meeting is, we're not saying anything has to be done. I'm not trying to make any changes in the status quo. I would just like to know what they are, and all we're doing is looking at, I think Ted has already compiled a lot of the numbers, and was maybe a request for a little bit more. And so, it's not going to be taking us a lot of time, Paul. I mean,
I don't see it taking.
it would be
a lot of
helpful to
time.
me, that's all.
Your comment about land use, I believe our biggest expenditure for legal expenses from a graph or a circle graph that Ted showed was land use.
Yeah, the issues in land use law are immense.
Yeah.
And varied and very complex and complicated. And, the interesting thing about land use in today's world is that an applicant rarely comes in before the town's boards without an attorney. So to expect the planning board or the ZBA or the Concom or Board of Health or Historic Districts Commission to be, dealing with, the complex issues that they confront on a regular basis without the benefit of an attorney who doesn't sit there at every meeting, of course, but there are some very complex issues.
We don't disagree with that.
and-
But the issue, we're going into South Hingham, there's a bunch of land purchases on the table. There's going to be continuing issues in South Hingham as development happens, as we face other 40Bs. Maybe it's time to have an in-house counsel that specializes in land use. I don't know the answer to this, but I'd sure like to look at this 80 Ways to Sunday and see if there's a better way to do it. I'm going to ask that we get help from the advisory committee, who are budget experts, and we've got terrific lawyers on that committee. Maybe one or two of them could participate in this analysis.
Well,
And if we're...
I'm a lawyer. You're a lawyer.
I'm not. I'm an
And-
engineer.
Well, that's great, but the relationship that a lawyer has with the client is a very special one, and it takes a very long time to establish if, in a situation, in a context like this, to build trust, to get the kind of comfort level. And I don't want to be treating our lawyers like widgets. I don't. And they're people too, but they provide a valuable service. I think I've met John Coughlin once, but he has a different role. Really, I'm saying a lot more than I'd like. And Susan Murphy, I've known her for years, and, we're doing the land use stuff on a regular basis, so that's, and Kerry, we traveled and saw him in action. So, again, I'm very uneasy with your laser-like focus on this issue.
My
With all due
laser-like,
respect, yeah.
well, with all due respect, my laser-like attention comes on anything that has big numbers in budgets, and taking a look at them and saying, is there a better way to do them?
That's right. And
For the
that's why paying
taxpayer.
$4 million to rebuild Barnes Wharf gets my immediate attention.
Thank you, Paul. I think we should do the analysis. I don't think this is a big deal if we get a couple lawyers coming out of advisory to help with this.
I already said I was supportive of it. I don't think that it's going to change things very much, Paul. I do have some respect for the people that are doing it. I've got to know them, but I'm new. These things happen all the time. Just show us, look at the numbers, let's take a look at it, and we can...
And let's see what the needs analysis from the town side is. We appreciate every one of our legal team and what they do.
So have
The
we...
ripple effect is enormous here. That's my clarion call.
The only one we haven't really talked about, which I know is near and dear to me, is senior housing and affordable housing. And we're very lucky to have the Housing Trust. But under that, the accessory unit study group, that's going along very well.
Agreed.
Were you agreeable on that one, weren't you?
Yeah,
seniors?
I'm absolutely a fan of that. I think that we
Yeah,
should
okay.
continue to
Yeah.
develop affordable housing wherever it's appropriate.
Because I am
We can
still,
do it.
I am still going to pursue the adding a wing of some type onto Lincoln School apartments with parking.
That would
for
be
small
interesting to
cars.
watch you try.
Deal.
We don't have.
Deal.
We don't have dimensional relief for compact cars,
Deal.
just so you know. It's 9 by 20 with 23-foot wide aisles.
Understood.
So do we want to go through, just to make sure that we're clear on which ones that we agree, and obviously, Paul, you can disagree on that, if there's one
Yeah.
or two or whatever.
And what I'll do is, I'll be the secretary again, because I was the first time. If I can get this as a Word doc, that would be
I
great.
sent it to Betty and Ted as one.
Okay, we got it as somewhere in a big PDF around 3:30 this afternoon, so. Aquarian, we're fine on. Property tax relief, we're going to add the examine the unused levy capacity.
Are you working off of this one?
These were for yours.
Kinda.
The one that I submitted?
Kinda. I'm working
Right, well-
on both.
Okay.
Economic development, leave that alone.
This is all on Paul's.
Yes, and then we'll go to ours, the other one. Can we just call this harbor issues? And then we
I'd
can
like
merge
to
them?
reestablish the Harbor Development Task Force.
Well, only because it includes more than that, Paul, we should probably call it something different than that.
But I think that it brings in the disciplines that we're going to need to properly focus our energies on what
Okay.
goes in down there.
Then I'll relabel this, reestablishment of the Harbor Development Task Force and harbor issues. Just so we can get we'll add the RFP for the Maritime Center.
I'll object,
Okay,
for the record.
okay. And the warrant article.
I'll object, for
Okay.
the record.
Okay. Then the policy and town bylaws, I think that's excellent. We'll add in the athletics master plan, the debt management plan, senior housing, legal expenses, and that would be it. I think we'll just skip the facilities management, because that's a much, much larger discussion.
Yeah, I'd still object to the legal expenses, but I know that you're going to do it. But
Oh, do you want to object?
I do.
He did.
Yeah,
Okay,
I do.
2-1.
I do.
So do we need to take a vote on that, Ted?
I think it's worthwhile you memorializing your roles.
Yeah, we'll take a public comment.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Do you want to? Come up. If you want to sit, you can do that too.
This is fine. Well, I feel funny with my back to everybody. Paul Neat, 59 Bradley Hill Road, and president of the Hingham High School Rowing Association. And Paul, I could not agree, and I'm talking specifically about the RFP for Barnes Wharf. And Paul, I couldn't agree with you more. We need planning. And the reason why we want the RFP is to have planning. And you had mentioned what group, and right now we have Lincoln Maritime and we have Hingham High School. We have 130 rowers down there now this fall season. We have 100 in the spring, and it can be pretty chaotic. And we need a planning process so we can work with the structure that we have, whether there's a rotary or not rotary, whether there's a wall that needs to be rebuilt or not. We need a plan to work with what we have. And right now, we don't have the infrastructure or the governance to work together as one entity with Lincoln and the high school to improve that property to meet our current needs. So the RFP is the stimulus to form that entity that will be a joint group between Lincoln Maritime and the Hingham High School Rowing Association and whoever else wants to be involved in programming to open up the access to the wharf to the town of Hingham to improve the property to the best of our ability. We need to improve the docks. We need to add a ramp so we have better access. We need to add bathrooms so the kids aren't using a porta potty. The parking lot right now has huge divots in it that we need to address. So there's things that need attention and need at least to support so we can have an entity that make decisions about improving the property that are well and preceding a building or any structure going in that site. So to me, just lobbying the RFP is a huge stimulus to get the property working to our best capability for Lincoln, for Hingham High School, for sailors and rowers.
Thank you.
And I agree what you want to do is a good thing, and I don't want to be painted like I'm not supporting that concept, but there may be other areas in the harbor that upon further planning and opportunities would be superior. And this takes that opportunity away.
I don't know that I would agree with that. This is a lease for the property. As Irma said, it's 5 to 7 years before any structure goes in that property. So there's a lot of planning that needs to happen, and there's a whole lot of moving parts, and we need to work with all of those. But there is a need right now to make the property work for what we have, and that's what I'm advocating first and foremost.
If you had 500 people in your rowing program, there wouldn't be a place down there that you could support that.
We don't. 130 is our cap.
Right, but if it grew,
we'd have caps. We do not have cuts in our program. If we had more than 130, we would move to cuts. So we are at the limit. We realize we have parking limitations, but we need to work with what we have, and we need a process to fundraise and to raise capital to improve the property, and we have the engine to do that. We want to be able to give the green light to start that process.
And Paul, I want to thank you for coming and giving your
Yes,
perspective, because
thank you.
it was well said. And another thing I want to do is congratulate the program for another fantastic state tournament. You guys.
Thank you.
Oh, the Charles.
Very proud of you guys.
The Charles is amazing. And Mr. McCaig is in the audience. We want to thank him also. As I understand, some oldies were also rowing, or youngsters. Mr. Reardon.
Bill Reardon, 9 Steamboat Lane, and the current chair of the Harbor Development Committee. On the RFP and the harbor broadly, I just wanted to offer a couple of other observations, as much for the audience and those at home as for you, but I think it bears on your thinking as well. There's a bit of a philosophical difference that we're all hearing this evening in terms of, do you go for the RFP in the interest of kind of stimulating the activity or not, or do you have the basic infrastructure first? And there's an argument to be made on both sides. It does strike me that if the RFP goes, and if an entity comes forward and brings something forward for the town's consideration, the town will ultimately have the say at town meeting to say, is this far enough along to warrant granting a 30-year lease, which is a very long-term deal. So a lot's going to have to happen between now and April if that's going to occur. A couple of other things, just there was some suggestion that Harbor Development would have concerns if the Harbor Task Force were revived. Far from it. It's crystal clear to me after a meeting that we had with the legislators 2 weeks ago. We met with both Garrett Bradley, Headland, and Jamie Murphy, who is the representative, representing parts of West Hingham Precinct 2. Their message was take a very big view, include not only what's on the harbor, but the transportation infrastructure as well. It really speaks to the size and scope of this project that I think in some respects feeds Mr. Healy's points in terms of, you do have to think big here. The other message that came through loud and clear, and it bears on our thinking as well, is they also said, Kevin Mooney from DCR, oh, and by the way, any thinking that you do, any planning that you do, don't even consider coming before us for state money unless you've addressed sea level rise. I think many are aware that sea level rise is something that the town is currently or is about to craft a consultation to study, and that the results from that are due out in the March-April timeframe, I think. Is that correct?
Is that?
So that we will have that much more information. That will inform a lot of our thinking. But it's certainly true that most of the structures on the harbor, as you know, I submitted a letter to the Selectmen in September asking for seed money to do a permit history assessment, which is what you always need when you start looking at the wharfs, as well as initial cost estimates and prioritization, which goes back to the issue of, which do you prioritize? The ones that need it the most or the ones that we use the most? Lincoln might qualify as the one that we use the most, or Iron Horse Park. But all of this, does need to be sorted out, and it's against that backdrop and my awareness as the chair currently of a volunteer committee with no staff. So one of the reasons I like the notion of the Harbor Task Force is it brings some staff into the equation, and I know that when the task force met previously from 2008 to 2011, I've reread their report recently. It was a very thoughtful report, and it pulled a lot of stuff together, and we're clearly at that point again on the harbor. So hope respectfully submitted to the discussion.
Thank you. Deidre, my Summer Street friend.
Hi, Deirdre Anderson, 31 Old Colony Road. We also have a secondary driveway out onto Summer Street. And I want to second everything that Bill Reardon said. I had a chance to participate in that harbor development meeting recently where all 3 elected representatives spoke. And I also want to remind the Board of Trustees that the Summer Street Neighborhood Group did present to you in March of 2013. And at that time, it was suggested that a task force be formed for Summer Street. So I do want to acknowledge what Mr. Healy says that, and again, echoing Bill Reardon, that our elected representatives did say you need to look at the harbor as a whole unit. And I do think it's a philosophy that if we go forward with the RFP, we have to be incredibly cognizant that we keep the harbor and its holistic vision, including Summer Street and 3A, because no one is going to get to the harbor if they can't get there safely. And I watch the rowers out my kitchen window running up Summer Street, and I think to myself, please stay single file. And until we can get Summer Street safer, and Stars and North Street safer, no one is going to take advantage of our incredible resource. So, and I urge those coming forward with the RFP to work collaboratively with the Summer Street Neighborhood Group, with the harbor interest, and to include us in your discussions, because it can never be that this group is against the athletics or the recreation, when really we just care about the safety of everything that's happening there. And we live it every day. And when we come around the Rotary and we see a parent taking a left into Lincoln Maritime, and we know that that's not a very good thing to do, that's what we're working towards. So I just want to reiterate that. Thank you.
I think the groups are very complementary. Deidre, I do think the groups are very complementary with the same goal in mind. Paul, this new task force, would that look at Summer Street?
Yeah, it would. It says address the safety issue of the Summer Street 3A corridor.
Okay,
Right on the bottom.
So all of these other bullets underneath are what the task force is going to do?
It's all part of the harbor.
Okay. But the task force would do all this? Okay.
Well, the traffic study would too.
Okay. All right. Do we want to vote this with your exceptions?
Sure.
Okay.
So should I make a motion to approve the goals and objectives as we just outlined?
Mm-hmm.
Subject to my...
Subject to Paul's...
objection.
Yes.
Yes, second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Now I hope I remember what I wrote.
Oh, I made some notes too.
Good.
Paul will remind us, believe me.
I'm sure he will.
We've got a recording of it.
On the,
Even better.
yeah, we can watch on the TV as I try and type this up. Okay, the next topic, and we do not have any documentation on this. Paul, I guess I'll ask you to, project engineer contract discussion.
Yeah. This is the awkward one, I guess, but I'm going to try to do this respectfully, without rancor. We just went through an experience with Roger Fernandez that was, without putting too fine a gloss on it, was unpleasant. And Roger is an integral part of our the smooth-running machinery of the town, and I think that he's shown his value repeatedly over the years. You know, his ability to work with the state, with the local permitting boards, with the Board of Selectmen. You may have individual differences with him, you know, Mr. Hersey's issues, but I think that the man has done a very good job, and what he went through, I realized you apologized, and I appreciate that, but I think Ms. O'Connor's question, and I didn't want to get into it with her asking that because I wanted to just hold. But I think it's a good one, and I'm unaware of any conversation with any lawyers, and I think that there's a way that we can express our support and our confidence in Mr. Fernandez going forward by simply extending the contract that he's got. It's 1 year left. Let's extend it to an additional 2 years. There are 9 people that are under these 3-year contracts. The chief, his deputy, the fire chief, his deputy, the gentleman over at the country club, Ted, Betty, and there's a...
Sue Nickerson, Steve Becker. We have a
Thank you.
large number of personal
All
contracts.
right, but I think we've just listed them all. And all of those people are highly valued and extremely important to the smooth running of the town. And what I'm seeing in my liaison capacity is there's a creep into the staff levels where there's what has happened to Mr. Fernandez has seeped down, and we've got to stop that. We have to stop it now. This is going to continue to be an acerbic exchange with people that are just very unhappy with what happened, and absent some kind of definitive statement by us as a board to basically cauterize the wound. This is going to continue to be problematic. And I think the surest way that we can do that is to, A, extend the gentleman's contract for a couple of years. That's a clear expression that we have confidence in him. We value his service to the town. And in one of those extensions, we provide a slight bump just to cover the guy's costs, his legal costs. We don't set a precedent by doing that. Other people who have had to hire lawyers are distinguishable. I think that it's clear that Mr. Fernandez did nothing wrong. That was acknowledged publicly, and it was an unfortunate thing that happened, but I think we have an obligation to make the guy right and make him whole, and we can do that without a lot of fanfare, and we can do that right now very quickly. We can get it done, and we can put it behind us. I mean, why not do that? That's a no-brainer to me. It'll send a great message that, you know, all right, we made a mistake, but we fixed it, and we're moving on. Yeah? I make a motion that we extend his contract 2 years with a slight bump to cover his legal costs, say $5,000 in one of those years.
Well, I mean, I'll speak whenever you want. I mean, I'm just...
Be my guest.
I mean, I can...
Go ahead.
So, what I did was, I take a little different tack, but I understand how good of an employee he is, and I spoke to him recently about his concerns about this issue, because I think when I was here before, I think I said, one of the things, Ted and I have talked about it several times, I was going to talk to Ted more about it so I could get up to speed on these things, so I could try to make decisions that I'm comfortable with, that hopefully the right decisions. I talked to Roger about it. The more I talk to the gentleman, the more I like him. I've always felt him very competent. I told him how much I appreciated what he did in the Fields project. And I also told him this, though. I told him that I'm willing to consider that. I said, but I'm not going to just come here on a motion and do that. I mean, I don't even know what his contract says. I mean, I'm going to sit down with Ted and go over it. You know, Paul, I mean,
well,
so...
Can I get a commitment from you that you'll meet with Ted and Roger, and at the next meeting we'll take it up on a vote?
No. I will meet with Ted, and I spoke to Roger about this, and I will be able to address that in the near future. I'm not going to pin myself down to the next meeting. And I'm sorry, I know. I appreciate what you're doing for him. Well, I don't want to keep it going. The gentleman's contract is up in November of next year.
Right.
May of next year is the timeline that we would technically have to notify him. That's all I know about his contract, because I asked Ted about it. Bottom line is, I'm looking to address this issue sooner than later. But Paul, I'm just being honest with you. I'm not going to commit to 1 week to get back to you, because I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here every time we meet. And I know we can't discuss things because of open meeting, but I'm going to talk to Ted. And I'm going to state my position so you'll know it at some point. And if it means that I'm going to second a motion down the line, I will be happy to do it. But I'm not ready to do it tonight. I think you knew that. I appreciate you speaking on behalf of him. Well, I mean,
I'm really speaking for the town, to be honest with you.
Let me speak also. It was very painful for me to do what I had to do. I like Roger. I have worked with him for years. I respect him greatly, but we also have a charge to look at the liability for the town. So this was not fun for me at all to have to do this to somebody that I like, have worked with, will work with in the coming years. We need to look at this. Ted had the email from me. I thought I gave him a verbal request, but I've now put it in writing, to have the lawyers look at legal fees. However, no, stop. I got the floor. So I don't have a problem considering Roger's contract, but I'm not going to vote on it tonight because I want to read it before I sign anything and vote on it. And I think what I'd also like to do, because I've expressed this before, on an equal basis, I think the Personnel Board should look at the content of all of our personnel contracts to make sure that they're okay. We have a very large number, and I think we should do benchmarking. Now, everybody says, oh my God, well, the two that I was involved in, the people that had the personal contracts got significant raises when we did the benchmarking. So I think all of our personal contracts do have to have a benchmarking component to them. We owe it to the taxpayers. So
this is an open wound, Ms. Slaughter. It's an open wound.
It's an open wound for me too, because I like Roger.
We're the Board of Selectmen. We've got
I understand that. We're not going to vote on it. I'm not going to vote on it tonight until you're asking us to vote on something we've never read. I read Roger's contract back in 2012.
But isn't it just renewed?
I don't know.
Mr.
Not necessarily.
Is the contract generally renewed as a matter of course with the same terms and conditions, or has it been altered in any substantive way?
Well, each of our contracts change at some level, but generally not substantive. Usually it's just a monetary value or one of the benefits. It might change periodically. But since we put contracts in for, in the last 4 years that I've been here, we standardized them all so they all have the same format, and we didn't, we haven't changed anything. And I think when we renewed the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, the deputies, they were just roll forward, change the dates.
Now, is the travel allowance that some of our people have, are they in the contract? I can't remember.
If people have travel allowances, they're included in the contract.
So I think we need to take some amount of time and have a new contract, and let us talk about it and look at it. I don't think it's fair to ask us to
I don't
vote.
want to jam you, but I want to get this addressed.
So not half as much as I do, Paul.
I think we've got to give ourselves some kind of deadline. I don't want this to go on in December.
Let's let the process take its way, so that we look at this and we do it the right way.
Here's my problem with that statement, ma'am. We didn't do it the right way when we got him in here on October 2. So let's do it the right way now. Let's fix that so we send him a clear signal that we have confidence in him. And something like that just, you know.
Well, I'm not going to revisit what happened on the 2nd.
I'm not asking you to.
Yeah, you did.
No, I'm not. I'm very clear about that. I'm trying very hard.
Then stop bringing it up. What we need to do is do the due diligence on the contract like we would at any time.
Mr. Chairman, if you know me.
Excuse me. We're not, no, excuse me.
Just do the right thing. Let's just keep
Excuse me. You need to be called upon by the chair. So, and I'm not going to take comments from, no, I'm not taking comments from the audience on that. Excuse me, please. Okay. We'll leave this with the town.
Why wouldn't you let these people speak? I think a lot of them came here to kind of voice their view on that.
This is a management issue, Paul. We all agree we're going to look at the contract. We need the town administrator's help to do that. And as soon as we have Personnel Board look at it, do some benchmarking,
You
and
know, I have
see
a
the
real problem
contract.
with that statement, too.
Why?
Because there was something that happened here yesterday where you excluded the town administrator on a management issue. And
Paul, that has nothing to do with this. Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
Let's stay on point. So can we
I am
agree,
staying
Ted, will
on
you work with us with all due haste?
I can have Mr. Fernandez's contract. I've already discussed the issue with Mr. Fernandez. He's interested in extending his employment for the town. He's not looking for any more compensation, just the existing terms rolling forward a couple of years. I can have that for the board on Monday morning.
Well, then let's do that.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's move on to appointments. I think we have a few of those. And some wine and...
So we're all set for Monday?
We don't understand.
Well, we're not having meeting Monday. So if all things fall in place, we'll discuss this the next meeting on Thursday. Okay? Mr. Siegfried.
May I make a comment, please?
Certainly.
Okay. Ed Siegfried, 21 Camelot Drive. It's been a long time since I've been before you, so let me start my remarks by saying with all due respect. So I've got that out of the way. A number of years ago, I was part of a group that was, I think, successful when I was chairman of the advisory committee, successful at getting the town's bond rating increased, and it was subsequently increased significantly after that. And one of the cornerstones of the AAA bond rating, and I think it's referred to in the each of Moody's and S&P and Fitch's reports, is the fact that the town has sound management practices. And I think myself that they're going to take a very hard look at what's transpired over the last month in terms of sound management practices. And I think the acknowledgement that the board has made that a mistake was made in the case of Mr. Fernandez, I think the rating agencies will look at that. And I think they'll look at the fact that a mistake was made, and I think they'll look to see what steps have been taken subsequently to that mistake having been made. That's my own view. I think my sense is that there are three actions that are taken when a mistake is made. And I think the first is acknowledgement that a mistake has been made, and the board has done that. And I compliment the board having acknowledged it. The second point is the apology, and I think an apology has been made. But the third, and I think perhaps the most important step, is the remedy. And I think the remedy hasn't been dealt with yet, as Mr. Healy has suggested. And I think the remedy is probably at this point critical. Because I know myself, if I were Mr. Fernandez, and I have never spoken with Roger Fernandez. I don't know Roger Fernandez. I've never talked to him. But if it were me, I'd be taking a very hard look at what my future would be in the town of Hingham. And I'd be looking at the possibility of perhaps entertaining opportunities elsewhere. So I think if you want to preserve the integrity of the bond rating that we have that's based on sound management practices, and if you want to preserve Mr. Fernandez as a valued town employee, I do think you need to act favorably on this request to extend his contract. Thank you.
Ed, we will. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed. Ed is one of the most respected men in town, and when I knew I was going to be chair of the advisory committee, that's how he and I met. I picked up the phone, because I used to go around asking, who's the best chair? And Mr. Siegfried's name came up, so I called him. Said, I need a mentor. And he has been. So we will deal with this. We're just not going to take a vote on something we've not, and I think you would agree with that. Okay. All right, let's move on to appointments. Thank you all. And Say it again?
You said we'll do it Thursday?
If all the paperwork is done, and I think this is where Paul Gannon and I are coming from, the paperwork has to be done, it has to be vetted. We're not going to take a vote on something that we're going to have to come back later and go, oops, we missed a paragraph. So we're just not going to do that. Okay, appointments and liquor licenses, which we seem to have quite a few of this time.
Do you want me to proceed on the first one?
Be my guest.
Good reason for that.
So I'm going to move to approve the issuance of a special one-day wine and malt beverages liquor license for the Friends of the Homeless fundraiser at St. John the Evangelist Episcopal Church on Friday, November 14, 2014, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I move that we approve the issuance of a special one-day wine and malt beverages liquor license to Maura Sullivan for the annual holiday wine tasting at the South Shore Conservatory of Music on Saturday, November 8th, 2014, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ted, you want to help us with some of these?
Sure. The next contract, the other votes regarding Eastern Minerals and Morton Salts, our annual salt bids. You'll notice that they're two different amounts because we bid them in different increments, and bids come in separately. They're fixed bid prices, and these are the low bid.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to sign a contract with Eastern Minerals, Inc. to sell and deliver to the Department of Public Works rock salt, solar, delivered at $63 per ton.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll move that we sign a contract with Morton Salt, Inc. to sell and deliver to the Department of Public Works rock salt, CC delivered at $59.98 per ton.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Wake up. Come on.
I was looking at the next one.
I know. Okay. That one's going to need a little bit of explanation. Ted,
Sure.
can you?
This is to issue a temporary 3-day, 2-night license to permit parking for Back River Townhomes residents at Lynchfield during paving operations at the condominium complex. So as it says, they're going to repave the roads. There's no ability for them to exit or enter the property during that repaving. They need to find a location elsewhere. We checked with the uses at Lynchfield and to see that it fits within the time frames.
Okay, I had asked Betty Foley to do that.
And that's what she did, and saw that there are no events going on that are going to make this complex. There was a request to try to do it last week, and we thought there were events that would be a problem. So.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll move to issue a temporary 3-day, 2-night license to permit parking for Back River Townhomes residents at Lynchfield during paving operations at the condominium complex.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Do you want to do it?
To appoint Richard J. Callahan to the Bear Cove Park Committee for a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2017.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So move to appoint Catherine Black to the Historical Commission for a 3-year term ending June 30, 2017.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll move that we appoint Dave Seabor as a Hingham representative to the Ware River Estuary Park Committee.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And there, I don't know if we have this proclamation.
All right, there,
Do we have it in here?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, whoopee. Anybody, who gets to read this? This is, November 2014 is Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, and we've been asked to declare a proclamation for that. So if one of you, since you're both
do it.
lawyers.
You want me to do it?
Thanks, Paul.
All right, so Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, November 2014. Whereas in 2014, an estimated 46,420 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 39,590 will die from the disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, is currently the 4th leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and is projected to become the 2nd by 2020. Whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits at just 6%. Whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally late stage, and 73% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 94% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. Whereas approximately 920 deaths will occur in Massachusetts in 2014. Whereas the Recalcitrant Cancer Research Act was signed into law in 2013, which calls on the National Cancer Institute to develop a scientific framework or strategic plans for pancreatic cancer and other deadly cancers, which will help provide the strategic direction and guidance needed to make true progress against these diseases. And whereas it is very difficult to leverage the opportunities that come out of the scientific framework developed as a result of the Recalcitrant Cancer Research Act unless sustained and adequate funding is provided to the National Institute of Health and National Cancer Institute. And whereas federal funding for medical research is critical to job protection and creation in Massachusetts, and whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is the national organization serving the pancreatic cancer community in Hingham and nationwide through a comprehensive approach that includes public policy, research funding, patient services, and public awareness and education related to developing effective treatments and a cure for pancreatic cancer. Whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates in Hingham support those patients currently battling pancreatic cancer, as well as to those who have lost their lives to the disease and are committed to nothing less than a cure. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Hingham are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen designate the month of November 2014 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in the town of Hingham, Massachusetts, dated this 30th day of October, 2014.
Thank you for doing that.
Excellent.
You want to do
Thank
a
you.
so moved?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
We need to sign that, Ted?
Yeah, then it should be in
There's
there.
a proclamation.
Okay.
Selectmen and Town Administrator reports. Ted, you want to start off?
Sure. I know that each of you were notified this afternoon, so I'll announce to the public through you that the Chief of Police has provided me with his resignation effective
Retirement.
April 30th, 2015, and he intends to retire effective that date.
Do you want to say a couple sentences about Aquarian?
The Aquarian decision came down. The judge has denied all of the motions presented by Aquarian in summary judgment, and indicated that we'd be going to trial. So I think it was a very positive outcome for the town. Clearly, in her opinion, addressed the issue that we wanted to see addressed, which is these matters are complex and need to go through to trial. And a couple of other points, Aquarian had sought to seek the removal of our expert witness and then also the videotaping of our expert witness during those depositions, and the judge denied both of those motions too. So.
That's February 10th.
And the trial is slated for the end of February. We expect it to be a week trial, and then the judge will render her decision after that. So.
That was very good news.
And
Carrie
then-
Ryan also did a spectacular job.
And then I wanted to also point out to the board and the public that on November 19th, Mass DOT will be having a public hearing regarding the 25% design submittals for the Garner Street, Whiting Street intersection. And that will be here in this building for people to attend.
Paul, I'll start with you.
How about you go, Paul?
Okay. So, a couple things. If I guess I want to first congratulate the girls soccer varsity team that just completed an undefeated season.
That's
I wish them luck in the tournament. I think I already congratulated the rowing teams for their successes at the Charles and I believe the state tournament. I wish all the rest of the teams that are still competing well. I'm just going by what I know in terms of what I've read. I want to again thank everybody that participated in the informational forum for the prevention of drug abuse. I will tell you that we're meeting, the committee is going to meet next week, and then we're probably going to reach out to some folks, if they haven't already reached out to us, to to set up a task force so we can work with other communities and help the folks in Hingham combat the scourge that's out there, especially with opiate addictions. And I think that's about it.
Cool. Do you want to go? Because I've got a few things. But.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues on the South Hingham Working Group. We continue to meet. We continue to expend a lot of intellectual energy trying to figure out the issues up there. Not an easy task, balancing a lot of different interests, but I'm certain that the town will benefit by this effort. The initiative with respect to the flag for the soldiers continues. I had a very nice lady that I've known for many years call me, and she was a little confused about who could donate, and frankly, anybody can donate and is encouraged to do so. You know, we're getting along, we're moving along. Veterans Day is coming, so I'm hoping that sparks people's interest in a morale raiser for the troops. With respect to Mike Perrano, he's a good cop, a great chief. He's a chief of a very young department. This is a blow. This is a loss to the town. He and I started on January 3rd, 1978, together. We went to the academy. We worked the midnight shift, and we've been friends for a long time. So I wish you well, Mike. I'm going to miss you a lot. That steady hand that you've shown as a police chief is going to be hard to replace. We'll do it, as we've always done. I served under 5 different chiefs. I could have really worked well with Mike as a cop. I want to absorb this a little more. It's troubling to me that a guy with a 3-year contract pulls the pin 4 months out. But I don't want to say anything injudicious right now. So, thank you.
First, I want to wish Mike Perrano the best. I am devastated by his announcement of his retirement. The legacy he leaves behind is amazing. I think it's over half of the force now he knew when he was the DARE officer and they were in high school. So it's a legacy that will live for a long, long time. And they are kids. They look very young. But they certainly had a great start in life with Mike. And he has always been their mentor all along. So they did buy a place in New Hampshire. So the good news is Tally and I will be able to see him, because our place in New Hampshire is very close. And we will make a point of it. He'll be able to enjoy it a lot more and a lot more free time. But it's devastating to me that he is retiring. So Godspeed, Mike. I've got a couple things. First, I want to thank Paul Gannon, for the drug forum. I know Hingham may not think we have a problem, but it's better to prevent it and to acknowledge the problems that are here. So I look forward to continuing to work with the task force. The windstorm that we had this past week that coincided with the drug forum, I want to thank the DPW, the light plant, and all of our first responders, police and fire, that were out there. Jeff Hanrahan gets the honorable mention for a number of times I heard his name on the scanner. When we got home after the drug forum, about every other call you heard Jeff Hanrahan, we need him here, we need him there. So and they're all men right now. The men on call with the DPW really do put their time in I also received a number of calls, and I know they're watching, a number of calls from residents of Lincoln School Apartments wanting to make sure I gave a special thank you to Captain Bill Powers. Lincoln School Apartments lost power, and then a few minutes later, they lost their generator. So the chief dispatched Captain Powers, who was the officer on deck, and one of our units, and they stayed there until all the people were bedded down and all their needs taken. Because as you've heard both Paul Gannon and myself say, the elevator replacement is critical. We have 60 units over there. The average age is 82-point-something years young, and that's average. There are lots of people with mobility problems. Not everyone was in their apartment when the place went dark and without the elevator. So I really did receive an awful lot of phone calls. It was like a good half dozen plus. So I know the ladies are watching, and I will be in big trouble if I don't say this. I want to also thank Mary Savage Dunham for hosting a fair housing meeting last night. The Fair Housing Center was in to talk about fair housing. We're very lucky here in Hingham. We have the Housing Trust, who takes care of us in all these matters. 2 people were on the forum. I was very disappointed in the attendance, but guess what? You can watch it on HCAM, and I would suggest that everybody do that. It was a very good session. And for those that aren't familiar with the laws, this was a very good way to catch up on it. Also, next week, we will have as short a meeting as we possibly can because the Hingham Merchants Association is sponsoring a fundraiser called Miracle on Main Street. And this is to support Christmas in the Square. This is Liz Klein, who's the new executive director. This will be her first big outing. So I'm hoping everybody that's listening will buy tickets and go support it so we can have a great Christmas in the Square. Got an email this morning from Betty Foley that Garrett Bradley's office has informed us that the Hingham Reserve Fund legislation for special ed, the stabilization fund, is now in the Committee on Bills in 3rd reading, which that was your world. That's a good thing.
I think that's a good thing.
And also, Kate Knorr is retiring. She actually has been running the fire department for, I don't know, what, 30 years?
18.
That's all? A lot of years. She is the chief's right-hand person. She is retiring, and tomorrow is her last day, and I know she wanted it low-key, but I guess nobody's listening, so this is not a big deal. We wish her well. I'm going to miss her a lot. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. One last thing, last Saturday, I couldn't go on the walkabout with the CPC because I was attending a collectors forum with Tally, and Bob Mosier gave an amazing talk. He is like very famous wood carver, but he talked about all of the wood carvers from Hingham, notably Joe Lincoln, and he had very, very funny stories about Joe Lincoln and the lore, and gave a nice history of carving of decoys, and had a nice assortment, some of which were worth unbelievable sums of money that he brought to show everybody. So we thank him.
Russ Bird?
Yes, he did.
Good.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, he talked about, and there are 2 burrs, and he
Alston.
I'll save the stories until you can hear Bob, but it was a great day. And Darren Bray gave another talk on Buckettown, and he added some new stuff in his slides and stories. So that was very, very much enjoyable to see. And hopefully if you get a chance, if they do it again, I'd ask people to really get out there and take a look at it. That's all I have. I think I got everything.
Okay.
What do you think?
Can I say one thing before you close?
If it's nice and short.
It is.
Okay. Yes, John. Relax. Thanks.
Relax. Okay. I lived in this town for 66 years. Okay. This is my view on Mike Carino. He's been the best chief this town's ever had.
Thank you.
Okay. I know the history. I've done the homework. okay? Here's a man that says he has an open door policy. He has an open door policy. Okay, every single time when I made a phone call to the secretary, he responded within 2 hours, which was fine with me. It was never an emergency. He always called me, said, John, can you come in at this time? I said, fine, I'm retired, you're not. I'll be there. He'd always listen to me. I didn't always get my way, but he told me exactly his view, and I accepted it, and I walked away. He's a gentleman, and I'm going to miss him this town.
Going to miss
I think
him a
the
lot.
town is.
Yep.
Thank you for saying
Thank
that,
you
Bob.
very much, John. Okay, I'll take a motion.
Motion adjourned?
Second.
Any further discussion? Are you kidding? All in favor? Aye.